And today we're going to be talking again about the brain. So, 2 weeks ago, we started with this topic about the brain, nutrition, and the brain, if you remember. And as promised, today we're going to be talking again about the brain, but we're going to talk about, very importantly, about depression and anxiety and how nutrition affects these things. And so I hope that you will be sharing this topic with your friends, with family, with people who might be interested about this topic, because this is so important, especially nowadays. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope that you also enjoyed last 2 weeks ago when we did the presentation about nutrition in the brain, part 1. And I hope you're ready for today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's pray. Let's get started with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everything you give us. Thank you for True Health Tuesdays. Thank you for Living Manna Online Church. Thank you for the opportunity to do these programs, for the technology that allows us to do it. And we ask you for your blessing on this presentation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So welcome back again, everyone. So if you are connected, let me let you know, by the way, that today is a pre-recorded again, because as I told you before, I am doing a class on Tuesdays, exact same time as True Health Tuesday. So 5 o'clock, I will be connected to a class on Zoom. And it's a wonderful class. I really love it. It's with Loma Linda University. School of Public Health. I'm really enjoying my class, by the way, but I do miss being online live with you guys. So, but you can still put on the chat where you are connected from, because I will be looking at those comments and I will be looking at any questions you have. So go ahead and put it, in the comments if you have any questions about anything, because I will be reading those comments later. So go ahead and put those comments in the chat as the presentation progresses. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put those, okay? So today we will be talking about the very important topic, because as you know, the mental health, we do have mental health on Mondays, which, what a wonderful church this is, right? Living Manna Online Church, with all this wonderful programming that we have, all these wonderful, wonderful things that Living Manna Online Church offers. And as you know, the health of the body is connected with the health of the brain. The health, the brain is part of the body. So the health of the mind is connected to the health of the body as well. So we will be talking about how nutrition affects the brain. And it does, because we've already given hints of that, as you might remember, when we talked about how, well, of course, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. But also even before that, I hope you remember when we talked about diabetes and how, if you remember, how many of you remember when we talked about diabetes type 3? Does anyone remember about that? Diabetes type 3. And some of you were like, what? I've never heard of that. Type 3 diabetes. So what are you talking about? And then we discovered that there is such a thing some researchers are calling Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes, because insulin resistance can happen in the brain. So yes, of course, these things affect, they're connected, and they affect the brain. So it's no surprise then that these mood disorders can be affected by what we eat. All right. So, and nowadays, with all these things going on, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, things that affect people's life. So of course, there are going to be much more many more people affected with these things going on. So there's going to be a lot more mood disorders, a lot more anxiety, a lot more stress, a lot more depression. So go ahead and share this link. And even after this presentation is posted, there's going to be the opportunity to share and let other people know about this. So I'm going to, this time I did remember to include my slide about making sure that you know. Oh, I'm sorry. This is still says diabetes. I need to remove that part about diabetes. But anytime that we do a presentation on True Health Tuesdays is not meant to be medical advice. Okay, so this is not. I am not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. But we know that Atante Myers can do those things, So that's why we have Mondays. On Mondays, we do that kind of presentations. But today we're going to talk about nutrition. So I do have a degree on nutrition. So I am going to talk about nutrition. But I do want to tell you also, again, for those who have maybe never heard me present, that I do rely on the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. So that's my spiritual disclaimer. And when it comes to even topics on health, I do, my guide all the time, every single time, is to rely on Isaiah 8:20, which many of you know by heart, I hope, says, to the law and the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them. And I hope you go by that too. And when you hear things on the internet, social media, this and here and there and there and there, make sure that everything you hear is according to this. Okay? Make sure, please, because there's so much misinformation out there. It's very, very important nowadays. There is too much misinformation, and I see too many people, even members of our church, who are being misguided by things that are not according to the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. And well, we need to know what the Bible says, and we need to know what the spirit of prophecy says in order to know, right? If we don't know what they say, how are we going to go according to it? You know what I mean? So first of all, we have to know what truth is, so we can discern between truth and error. So we have to study. We have to study the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Second is that you will always see me present scientific evidence for what I present. And it's because, look at this pyramid over here. At the bottom is where expert opinion is, background information. And after that, the rung right above it is case reports. That's almost the same as anecdotes. So when you hear, oh, okay, such and such person got better when they did this or that, that's just anecdotal information. So just because one person or two or three or four or 10 people got better doing one thing, that does not mean that it will be good for you. Because I don't know if you know this, I've never said this before, so pay attention, because this is the first time I'm going to say this on True Health Tuesdays. There's such a thing called placebo effect. Look it up if you've never heard of this, but this is it. If you give 100 people a sugar pill, meaning something that does absolutely nothing, it has no biological effect, it does nothing, it's a fake pill, a fake medicine. Okay, if you give that to 100 people who have whatever disease, if the placebo effect means that 30 of those people will get better. Not because the medicine worked, it's because they think it worked. That's what the placebo effect means, all right? So that's more or less the effect of placebo is about 30%. So this is what supplement companies or the grifters and people like this do. Okay, they go and interview the 30 people. Out of 100 people, they give the supplement to the all 100, and they interview only the 30. And so you think, oh, this is a wonderful supplement, this is a wonderful whatever treatment, but you only hear the 30. You don't hear the other 70 who didn't work for. You see? That's why I go back to Isaiah 8:20. To the law and the testimony. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And in the book, The Minister of Healing, there's a quote that lists the true remedies, the true remedies, the true remedies. And it's the 8 principles of health that the Adventist Church has been teaching for over 150 years, more or less. But you know what I mean. The 8 principles of health, the New Start principles, those are the true remedies. Those are it. Okay, so outside of that, you have to be really, really, really careful. Really careful. And if we start listening to people that talk about this and that and the other thing that are not according to the law and the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. If they're not according to it, if they come from people who are attached to churches who might be part of Babylon, we have to be careful. I'm just telling you guys, because we're living in dangerous times. Okay? Look at these. I know you've read them many times, but I just want to repeat because repetition is very important. I know it because I work with people who come to my program 10 times. It's the exact same program. And they do it 10 times. Repetition. They need it. They want it. Every time they learn something new, apparently. So they need the repetition, I guess. So look at this quotation. A knowledge of science of all kinds is power. So if you hear people outside of our church saying that science is not important, that science is bad, that science is blah, 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 blah. Be careful with that. Because the spirit of prophecy, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and it's telling us that the knowledge of science of all kinds is power. And it is the purpose of God that advanced science shall be taught in our schools as a preparation for the work that is to precede the closing scenes of Earth's history. When do you think that will be happening? 100 years from now? 50 years from now? When? So closely is health related to our happiness that we cannot have the latter without the former. A practical knowledge of science, of human life. Because somebody said, oh, no, when she talks about science, it's talking about the science of the Bible. Very clearly says right here, knowledge of the science of human life, physiology, is necessary in order to glorify God in our bodies. That's the first angel's message, part of it anyway, part of the first angel's message very clearly. Necessary. You have to know science in order to glorify God in your body. You have to know physiology. The more, the better. Okay. That's why you have True Health Tuesdays. I'm going to help you with that. Okay. Sorry, I rant sometimes. Okay. So today's topic, you can see how passionate I am. All right. Today's topic, we will be talking about mood disorders. Very important today. There's a lot of depression and anxiety with good reasons. All right. So I will be talking about how what we eat might have an effect on these things, all right? So we will be starting with this. Whoopsie, come on now. Here we go. Whoa. I'm gonna increase the size for you so you can see it better. All right, there we go. We will be talking about, first of all, look at this. It's talking about omega-6 fatty acids, all right? Now, we have talked about omega-6 fatty acids before. Omega-6 fatty acids are polyunsaturated fatty acids, okay? So not all of them are bad. Some of them are okay. And some of them are necessary, and they are essential fatty acids because our body does not make them and we need them in our diet. But in excess, they are pro-inflammatory. In fact, there is some inflammation that our body needs, okay? Because inflammation is also a response in case of injury. So if you cut your finger, for instance, the response your body needs is a little bit inflammation to heal that cut. So when you cut your finger, let's say cutting onions or whatever in the kitchen, there's going to be a little bit inflammation in that cut in order to heal the cut. All right. So we need a little bit of inflammation sometimes. So we cannot just have no inflammatory response in our bodies. There is a need for it. The problem, as I have explained in the past, is that in the modern diet, there is an unbalance. There's too much in our diet of omega-6 to omega-3, right? So the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is unbalanced. So ideally, we should have something of 4-to-1, 3-to-1, 2-to-1 of omega-6 to omega-3. Whereas in the standard American diet, otherwise known as the SAD diet, some of you might know that, it's called the SAD diet, Standard American Diet, aka the SAD diet, all right? So nowadays, the ratio is about 20-to-1. Terrible ratio. Therefore, our SAD diet is pro-inflammatory. Too much inflammation because we consume way too many of these omega-6 fatty acids. Now, this study right here that I'm showing you is talking about particular omega-6 fatty acids that are found in excess in the American diet. And there's two that it mentions in particular, because there's many omega-6 fatty acids. It's talking about two of them. And as you see in the text on the side over here on the left, it's talking about two that are called, one of them is called arachidonic acid, and the other one's called adrenic acid. These two, it's not the only omega-6 fatty acids in the diet. These are two in particular, okay? There's other ones that are not nearly as bad. But these two have been found to be associated with a higher risk of, number one, suicide risk, and number two, major depressive episodes. This study in particular was done with women in early pregnancy. Now, I'm going to tell you later where these two fatty acids are found. I mean, I can give you, I guess, an advanced information. But some of these fatty acids, for instance, some of the common sources of these fatty acids, I can tell you right now, I guess. Chicken is a major source of both. Eggs is a major source of arachidonic acid, and pork is a major source of adrenic acid. All right. So again, these are just examples of omega-6 fatty acids. There's other omega-6 fatty acids that are not nearly as maybe dangerous in large amounts. But these are two that could be a little bit more dangerous. Okay, so that's in regards to those two. Now, as I said, ideally, you want to have a better ratio of omega-6 to omega what again? Remember what I said? Omega-6 and omega. I've said it so many times, you guys. I hope you remember what the other essential fatty acids are. Polyunsaturated. You don't want the saturated, remember? Saturated are those fats that are solid at room temperature. I hope you remember these things. I hope you're making notes. Are you making notes? Saturated fats are the ones that clog your arteries. Those are solid at room temperature. Those are the really bad ones you want to avoid. They're usually the ones in animal fats. Avoid saturated fats. There's two exemptions because they're in plants, and those are the coconut and palm oil. So try to avoid those as well. They're great for your skin, your hair, whatever, but don't ingest them because, you can eat the coconut. The coconut has the fiber. The fiber helps to eliminate, by the way, excess fat, excess glucose, and all that. You can consume it with the fiber in moderate amounts, but try to avoid the oil because it's in concentrated amounts. Okay, having said that about saturated fat, polyunsaturated fatty acids are in liquid form, so they are the oils. But it's better to consume them in whole food form, meaning in the foods. Now, there's the two essential, omega-6 and omega, I hope you're saying 3. Now, where did you get the omega-3 again? Review. Now, people will say fish, right? People will say to you, fish. Yes, even your doctor might tell you fish. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to take myself out of the picture so you can, here we go. Here's what I'm going to tell you so that you can answer this question, because people are going to tell you, but isn't fish better? La, 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 la. Okay, yes. Fish was safe to eat 2,000 years ago. Yes, Jesus did eat fish. 2,000 years ago, there was no mercury in the ocean. There was no chemicals from all the industries, from all the, the agricultural pesticides and all the chemicals they put in the soil, blah, blah, blah. All of that wasn't there. You see the difference? Today, fish is the #1 source of contaminants in the food supply. And that's before we found out about nanoplastics. That's new. We figured that out recently. Now, people who eat fish, and by the way, drink water from plastic bottles. I hope you're not drinking water from plastic bottles. Glass or steel, stainless steel. Okay, if you drink water from plastic bottles and eat fish, you're consuming a credit card worth of plastic a week. A week. Yeah, sure. Fish has omega-3 fatty acids, but they're safer sources. Omega-3 fatty acids help fight depression and bipolar disorder. Yes, but they're safer sources. Flax seeds and chia seeds are the most concentrated plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids. What you want to do to absorb the omega-3 fatty acids is grind them. Grind them to a powder. Once you grind them, put them in the fridge. So people ask me, should I buy the ground flax? No. This is my personal professional advice. Do not buy ground flax. Buy the whole flax. Brown or golden? Question they asked. I don't care. They're both good. They're both good. But buy the whole seed, grind small amounts, put it in the fridge, and consume 1 to 2 tablespoons minimum a day. Every single day, every single person in your family. Are you consuming every single day flax or chia? If you are not, you are probably deficient. Think about this. You are probably deficient. If you're consuming oil, any oil, more than a tablespoon a day, you're probably not converting the short-chain fatty acids from the chia and flax that you're hopefully consuming into the long-chain fatty acids called EPA and DHA. Your body needs to convert them, the fatty acids from the chia and flax, into long-chain fatty acids. Your body needs to make that conversion. But if you're consuming oil, if you're frying your food, if you're using more than 1 tablespoon a day of oil, you're probably not making that conversion because the enzymes are competing. I'm just telling you, okay, so that you know. There's other sources of omega-3 fatty acids: soy, walnuts, greens, such as the kale you see over there, but they're not as concentrated as chia and flax. And hemp, that would be number 3. Chia and flax are number 1. Okay? So your brain needs them, you guys. Your brain needs them. Okay, I'm taking way too long. I better move on. Okie dokie. So here, well, see, I needed to say all of that because there it is. Here's the study. There are a number of studies which shows that omega-3 fatty acids are proving to be very effective against the treatment of major depression disorder and other psychiatric disorders. Very effective. Association of use of omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids with changes in severity of anxiety. Do you see that? It's in the title. Do you see it? Do you see it? I hope you are looking. And right there at the bottom, it says the review indicates that omega-3, PUFA, P-U-F-A, means polyunsaturated fatty acids, might help to reduce the symptoms of clinical anxiety. Further well-designed studies are needed in populations with whom anxiety is the main symptom. So let's study it some more, but there's already plenty of good indications that it could be helpful. Isn't that good news? I think it's good news. So do it. I mean, everybody should be doing it already. But if you have anxiety and depression, more reason. Start right now, tomorrow, today, not even wait until tomorrow. Go to the supermarket right now. Go get some. All right. I was talking about arachidonic acid. Why is it bad? Here, it says right here. Because it causes inflammation in the brain. I had already said it's inflammatory. Well, do you need more proof? Well, here it is. It causes inflammation in the brain. It's right there in the title. Right in the title. You see it? Arachidonic, I highlighted it for you. And right there in the abstract, arachidonic acid, AA, is pro-inflammatory. Remember the sources I told you? Chicken, eggs, pork. Those are some of the main sources. see, and some people say, well, chicken's not bad. It's white meat. Eggs are great for you. 1 a day. Some people eat 7 a day because they go to the gym. My goodness. Okay. So please, let's read the writings. That's why they were given to us. That's why, because so we can discern truth and error. They were given to us as a blessing. All right. Look at this. This study restricted meat, fish, and poultry. And what happened? 2 weeks, you guys. In 2 weeks, they saw improvement in mood. Don't need much time to see results. What they saw, especially with arachidonic acid, I highlighted it for you. The best results were with arachidonic acid. The baseline was basically saw the best improvement for people with following the omnivorous diet. And then the change was the biggest to a vegetarian diet. What? Crazy. And okay, so look at this also. People who followed a plant-based diet. Look at this. It's right there. To determine whether a plant-based nutrition program in multi-centers improved depression, anxiety, and productivity. It's right there in the title, reduces depression and anxiety. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. It's been done over and over and over again. It's not just like a one-off. Why do you think a plant-based diet is so effective? Why? Why do you think it could be so good? I'll tell you some of the reasons, okay? First of all, people who go on a plant-based diet naturally start eating more foods like this. What do you notice? Well, I gave you a hint. You notice a lot of colors, yes? Green, what else? Red, yeah? Yellow, orange. Don't they look pretty? As humans, we have vision that notices a lot of colors. Do you know that not all animals see all these colors? Especially carnivores, they don't see all the colors. Do you know? Did you know that? Because they are not meant to eat all these. Well, God, after the fall, he allowed animals to eat those carcasses because otherwise they were going to just pile up. So now some animals are meant to eat other animals that were otherwise, because there's going to be death now, all right? But as humans, we're not meant to eat them. Our anatomy and physiology is not meant for it. We are attracted to these. The colors. You know what the colors are? They are pigments. And the pigments are the antioxidants. Now, what about the antioxidants? Consumption of antioxidants is associated with, the antioxidant status. So if you have low antioxidants, it's elevated depressive status. Here at the bottom, I'm going to take myself out, says, conclusion, total carotenoids. Carotenoids in this case, is what they studied. Carotenoids is a type of antioxidants. Was associated with reduction in levels of depressive symptoms. Depressive symptoms. Isn't that amazing? So now you're going to run to the store, CVS or Walgreens. You're going to go and buy a bottle of it. Yes? Don't do it. Because look, only antioxidants that came from food, you guys. Fruit, look at the title, fruits, vegetables, and antioxidant intakes lower in older adults with depression. And at the very bottom, it says, these findings point to the importance of antioxidant food sources. Food sources rather than dietary supplements. Do you know that when they did certain studies and they use supplements instead of the food. For instance, they did a study with vitamin A in smokers, and they found that people who were taking the supplements actually had more risk of cancer rather than less. They did a study with vitamin E, which is another antioxidant, and I would think it was heart disease. And the vitamin E, the people who were taking the vitamin E had more risk instead of less. So not all supplements are necessarily good. Now, some are good, but some aren't, so you have to be careful. We can make generalizations, okay? Now, but some might be good. All right, so having said that, let me talk about another interesting nutrient called folic acid or folate. So it's been found to be good, for instance, for women who are pregnant. They need to have enough folic acid to avoid some diseases, some conditions that can happen to the baby. But in the case of brain function, it's very important that people avoid the deficiency as well, because it's going to affect brain function, and it is a risk factor for depression. The interesting thing about folic acid is that it's found in so many foods. You do not need to take the supplement. Lentils, great source. Greens, you guys. We should be eating these foods daily. We really need to be eating green foods, especially the greens, daily, because they're anti-inflammatory. If you're not eating greens every day, you are probably deficient in these anti-inflammatory compounds. If you're not eating legumes, and by that I mean beans, lentils, garbanzos, these kinds of foods, if you're not eating every day, you're probably deficient in fiber, because this is number one source of fiber. Now, that could be a problem for some people, of course, right? Because some people are like, I can't eat them, because they have some problems, as you might know, with the fiber. It gives them some digestive issues. And that's not because the food is bad, it's because your digestive system is not acclimated to the fiber. So in that case, you need to train your digestive system, your microbiota, meaning the good bacteria in your gut. You need to train it to start processing the fiber in these foods. So you don't start with 2 cups a day. You start with 1 tablespoon a day. And then you go to 2 tablespoons the next week, and then 3 tablespoons the following week, and so on and so forth. So you need to train it little by little to handle the good fibers. And that way you change your microbiota to be healthier and healthier. That's how you do it. Okay, so folic acid. Folic acid, look what it says. Evidence suggests that folate, another word for folic acid, folic deficiency may be causatively linked to depressive symptoms. See how important? We need to be eating these foods on a daily basis. I don't know how else to tell you guys how important it is to eat these foods. I mean, this is just one reason to avoid depression, but it's a whole host of reasons, right? It's anti-inflammatory, it's good for the digestive system, and it's good for so many other things. I mean, these are the foods we were meant to eat. The longest living people in the world, the blue zones, eat these foods. We thrive on these foods. Greens every day, beans every day, fruits every day, whole grains every day. These are the foods we were meant to eat. It's in the Bible. Okay, I want to talk to you about something super interesting now. Next, it's an amino acid. Amino acid. What is an amino acid? Okay, amino acids. Okay, well, the name of it, I'm going to give you first of all the name of it. The name of this amino acid is tryptophan. Some of you are like, what? This is too much science. Okay, well, slow down, all right? Okay. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Think of proteins as long chains, and the building blocks are called amino acids. Okay, so tryptophan is one kind of amino acid, and there's different kinds. Why is this important? It says right there, because tryptophan is the precursor for a neurotransmitter, meaning something in your brain, kind of well known, right? Kind of famous. Have you ever heard of serotonin? Serotonin. You might have. Some of you, rings a bell. Serotonin, serotonin, serotonin. Yes. When it comes to maybe depression, you might have heard of some medications, maybe antidepressants. Yes? Rings a bell? Yes. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter that it's not only found in the brain, but when it comes to antidepressants, they work on serotonin. That's why you probably heard of that. It turns out that tryptophan is a precursor. In other words, it gets converted into serotonin in the brain. And when you have low levels of serotonin, the thinking goes, that leads to depression. Therefore, when they give you antidepressants, some antidepressants work on elevating the levels of serotonin in the brain. That's what basically what it means. And let me show you this in a different way. It's a little bit illustrative of what I'm talking about. This is very, very sciencey, but it kind of shows what I'm talking about. So tryptophan is the molecule all the way to the left. It gets converted to another thing called 5-HTP, which is actually a supplement. You can buy it as supplement form. And 5-HTP gets converted to serotonin. So that's the chain of reactions that happens in the brain. I'm going to show you something else. This, what you see right here, is how two neurons connect. And do you know that neurons don't touch each other? There's a little gap in between them. There's a little space actually in between them called the synapse. So that space, the empty space in between neurons, by the way, are cells in your brain. And so the information, if you will, gets transmitted from neuron to neuron through these neurotransmitters, and serotonin is one of them, right? So it gets passed on from one neuron to the next, but there's a little space, right? So it's called the synapses. You can see right there in the picture how these little balls, right? They get sent from one neuron to another, right? And so what the medications do, the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, those are your antidepressants, SSRIs. What they do is that they block the next neuron basically they actually block the first neuron from taking up some of the leftovers, if you will, of the serotonin. So instead of absorbing it, it gets blocked from absorbing some of the leftover serotonin. And so it's just basically left to float in that synapse. So there's more in it, more serotonin left behind that increases, what says right there, increases the serotonin levels in the synapse. That's why you have more serotonin in your brain. That's how they work. It's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit sciencey. Okay. So here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing of what I'm trying to explain. Since tryptophan, the amino acid, now amino acid, as I said, amino acids are part of proteins. Okay. So the thinking goes that if you eat more proteins, that you will have more tryptophan, you will feel better. So the thinking goes, just eat more foods that have tryptophan. Eat more chicken, more milk, more cheese. These foods will elevate tryptophan in the brain, and you will feel better. It's good for you. That was the thinking. But it doesn't work that way. I'll tell you why. Tryptophan is the hardest amino acid to actually be absorbed in the brain because it competes with other amino acids to get absorbed into the brain. It competes. So when a food, listen, okay, this is important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This is very important because people go on low carb diets that have a lot of protein. That's why this is important, okay? So when you're eating too many proteins that have other amino acids, listen, okay? Listen. I know this is getting sciencey, but give me a minute. When you eat these foods, let's say chicken or cheese or milk, whatever, these animal proteins tend to have too many other amino acids that compete with tryptophan for absorption in the brain. And tryptophan, being the hardest one to get into the brain, gets left behind. That's the key. When you eat too many of these high protein foods that have too many other amino acids, tryptophan tends to get left behind, actually. So instead of absorbing more tryptophan into the brain, you actually absorb less of it. So what does that do? You know what that does? What that does? I'll show you. That does something super interesting. What ends up happening is that a diet high in protein, listen, results in low tryptophan in the brain, according to studies. I'm not making this up. Whereas higher carbohydrates in the diet do the exact opposite, because the insulin, for whatever reasons that I'm not going to go into now because it will take me another half an hour to explain the metabolic reasons why this happens, okay? But insulin actually helps tryptophan to go into the brain. Now, I'm not telling you to go eat a bunch of cookies, okay? Because good carbohydrates do this too. You don't have to eat cookies or drink Coca-Cola. Good carbohydrates do this. So, to recap, high protein, especially of these special types of amino acids called branch amino acids, that lower the tryptophan in the brain, whereas high carbohydrates actually help tryptophan to go into the brain. What do you think that does if you have low tryptophan in the brain? High protein, lower carbohydrate, the second bullet. High protein, low carbohydrate diets increased depression in stress susceptible individuals. A high carbohydrate, low protein diet increased the ratios of tryptophan to other amino acids in the brain. But a high protein, low carbohydrate diet increased depression. What do people do when they want to lose weight or gain muscles? They go into the gym. What kind of diets do they do? Here it is again. It's not a one-off. High carbohydrate, low protein diets increase the ratio of tryptophan to other large neutral amino acids, which increases. What does this do when you have more tryptophan in the brain? Increases the levels of serotonin in the brain. What do you think that does? That's what SSRIs do. Increase the level of serotonin in the brain. That's what SSRIs do. The same as a high carbohydrate, low protein diet. SSRIs do the same as this. I'm just telling you guys. Here's more confirmation. Consuming more carbohydrates improves the measures of depression, tension, anger, confusion, sadness, fatigue, alertness, blah, 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 blah. What I'm trying to tell you with all of this is do not go on low carb diet. It's already known that there's side effects with this diet, such as irritability. Don't do it. Especially if you're prone to depression, stress, whatever. Don't do it. It's only going to make it worse. Don't do it. Let alone the fact that they don't provide enough some nutrients, very important nutrients. They reduce tryptophan in the brain. You're going to put yourself at risk for depression and anxiety. I don't recommend it. The keto, carnivore, all these things, they're risky. Long-term effects of very low carbohydrate diets and a low-fat diet on mood and cognitive function. Over 1 year, there was favorable effect. Right here, I'm just reading the conclusion. It's highlighted. There was favorable effect on an energy restricted, meaning lower calorie, low-fat diet compared with isocaloric, meaning the same calories, low carbohydrate diet on mood state and affect in overweight and obese individuals. The low-fat diet was better for mood and cognitive function than the low-carb diet. It's been proven so many times. There's plenty of evidence. Okay, so this is a safe way to improve tryptophan in the brain, okay? Very safe way. There are foods that are higher in tryptophan and not so much of the other amino acids. There's not so much competition. I'm going to tell you which foods. So if you consume these foods that are higher in tryptophan, along with healthy carbohydrates, so a diet of healthy carbohydrates, which would be your whole grains, your legumes, your fruits and vegetables, and these foods that I'm going to tell you now, you got it. Are you ready? Write them down. Here they go. These foods are high in tryptophan compared to other amino acids. These combine with the foods that I just told you. So what foods are they? Tofu, pumpkin seeds, over there in the left bottom. Over here, sesame seeds, almonds. There you go. That in the context of a plant-based diet. You have it. What do you think? Okay, I hope you wrote that down. Okay, so moving on, what really is not good for your brain, of course, would be junk. High-fat foods impair the circulation to the brain and may be a risk factor for depression. You probably already know that. But I'm going to give you studies that prove that. High-fat diet promotes depression-like behavior This was done in mice, but it shows you what possible mechanism it does it, what possible brain mechanism it causes these depression like symptoms, okay? The hypothalamic PTA signaling, if you're really into that. High fat diet can negatively affect mood by producing inflammatory response in the brain. So here we see more confirmation of the effect of a high fat diet in general, not just what we saw at the beginning, which was certain omega-6 fatty acids, but this is just a high fat diet in general produces that response. Now, I'm going to tell you a story really quick before we move on from the diet alone, because I want to tell you beyond just the diet. There are other important things that I want to tell you in the last few minutes of this presentation, because there are other lifestyle factors beyond just nutrition that I just want to briefly mention, okay? But just to finish the nutrition part of it, there's a story from Forks Over Knives. I don't know if you've ever gone into that website, and I invite you to visit it. There's of course, a documentary that was done, I think in 2011 it came out, and now it's the classic. And it's a great documentary. It's called Forks Over Knives. So really good, very inspirational and motivational. Excellent. And in the website, there's a lot of testimonials of people who have changed their diet and improved their health and changed their lives. But I want to read you really quickly the story of this woman who you can see on the left, the picture of her years ago, and then on the right, what she looks more recently. But she says she started dieting at the age of 9, and every time she lost the weight, she swore that she would never gain it back. But of course, as many people, she gained it back each time, and her whole old habits came back along with the weight. In 2013, when she was 55, she was on the end of her rope, she says. And it was in the grip of lifelong depression that suddenly had gone from bad to worse. And she also had like ache in her feet and her knees. She's only 4'11", and she weighed 220 pounds, BMI of 44. And so she knew she couldn't continue in that path. But another round of calorie counting and portion control was out of the question, she says. The first thing she did was start mindful eating practice. Many of you might have heard of this. And she thinks that was really a transformation for her, without which maybe nothing else would have been possible. So she started paying attention to her food, the thoughts in her mind, her feelings, and she was able to begin to understand what was driving her to overeat. But this was not a quick process. It took almost 2 years, but it really laid the foundation for what was to come later. And then she watched what I said, Forks Over Knives, and something didn't quite click in her brain. She was ovo-lacto vegetarian at the time, so she was in such denial. She didn't realize that the diet presented in the documentary was radically different from what she was doing at the time. And she was possibly still buying into the whole thing about everything in moderation, which is a myth. And she was thinking that there was nothing wrong with that. So she was eating small amounts of cheese every single day. But her eyes were open, so she began to investigate the connection between inflammation and depression. And she stumbled across somebody who you might know, Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger, a plant-based whole food physician. And after that, she rewatched Forks Over Knives. She connected the dots, and she realized that dairy was probably contributing to her depression and also to her weight. And so her first thought was, oh, please, anything but dairy. She loved cheese. In fact, she felt nothing tasted good unless it was buried under a mountain of cheese. But decided she would give it up for 2 weeks. That's it. You could do anything for 2 weeks, okay? 2 weeks, that's it. She lost 7 pounds in a matter of days, which was a great motivator. So by the end of 2 weeks, she was beginning to think she was onto something. So she decided she would that she decided that she can continue for another 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, for another month. And so she kept losing weight. So decided that she would do full 6 months just to be sure. So the cravings, though, started to come back around that time after 6 months. So she really wanted pizza. She wanted cheese. She wanted ice cream. And these weren't the kinds of cravings that you can easily get distracted from. They were intense, relentless. So that was probably some kind of withdrawal symptoms after 6 months. Cheese had been her drug and she wanted it. Forks over knives helped her to, hold on. She probably saw that thing once a week, I think, gave her the motivation to keep going. So she made other changes. She began to eat more vegetables, gradually cut out the oil, salt, exercise more. Now that she eats a whole food plant-based diet, it's been 5 years, she lost 90 pounds. Her lifelong depression has lifted, and she has taken up more active lifestyle, running 10Ks and numerous 5Ks. She switched to biking because her knee started to be too damaged from a lifetime of obesity. But now she helps others with a certificate of plant-based nutrition that she got. So she is a trainer. She helps people to have a lifelong yo-yo dieting, and she has a YouTube channel. She demonstrates plant-based meal prep and other things. So anyway, I thought that was a story that would help inspire some people, because she did have lifelong depression, and she overcame that with a diet change. Of course, she added exercise and other things. So good story. All right. So having said all of that, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of adding on other things, because depression and anxiety, these are mood disorders. Mental health is important to not just, of course, the diet. There's other important aspects of it. So I want to talk really briefly about other important aspects that I think cannot be left unsaid anyway. This is what I think. So the importance, for instance, of sleep. So important. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger so you can see that, for instance, sleep. There's, of course, hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that talk about this. So chronic insomnia is one aspect, one example of a risk factor for developing anxiety and depression. Sleep is vital for mental health. Okay, so just want to mention it briefly. But of course, I can go on and on and on, but I just want to mention it briefly, how important it is to sleep for mental health. Okay, number 2, I'm going to go into this a little bit more because this is just one of my absolute passions. But the importance of physical activity to reduce depression symptoms. In fact, they have done studies where they have compared antidepressants and physical activity. And of course, the antidepressants work fast at the very beginning, a little bit faster than exercise. But after 6 months, they have found that the antidepressants and the exercise have the exact same results. So basically, they have the exact same effect. So right here from the NIH, it says that not getting enough physical activity can increase your risk for diabetes, heart disease, cancers, and mental health disorders. So it says current theories about depression suggest that sleep problems and lack of energy and physical activity can result from a depressed mood. Now, super interesting, but look at this. Exercise is actually now, so I said before, they have said that it was about the same effectiveness as medicines, but now they're saying it's actually more effective. Listen, you guys, exercise more effective than medicines to manage mental health. What else do we need? Look at this study. Effectiveness of physical activity interventions for improving depression, anxiety, and distress. You see the conclusion right here? I'm going to read it. Physical activity is highly beneficial for improving symptoms of depression, anxiety, and distress across a wide range of adult populations, including the general population, people with diagnosed mental health disorders, and people with chronic disease. Physical activity should be a mainstay approach in the management of depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. Look at this other one. I'm going to show you real quick. I'm just going to read you the title. Effects of, whoa, this is not even talking about walking anymore. Resistance exercise training on depressive symptoms among young adults. Well, the study was done with young adults, you guys, okay? But that doesn't mean older adults don't benefit. I'm just reading you the type because, of course, this was done with young adults. But it says among 55 young adults, ages 26 years, okay? 36 females. But the surprising, I think, to me anyway, it was surprising to me to find out that now they have found the not only cardiovascular activity has benefits on mental health, but effects of resistance exercise training, in fact, has benefits. And I heard a researcher actually talking about these studies and was talking about actually the effect, the magnitude of the effect in some of these studies was actually larger than cardiovascular exercise, which was super surprising for me anyway, that the magnitude of the effect of resistance exercise in some of the studies anyway was larger for resistance than the cardiovascular. But not to say that the cardiovascular is not important. They're both extremely important. So I would recommend, I always do this, always recommend to do both, because human beings are meant to do both. Our current modern lifestyle is not natural. We're not meant not to use our muscles. We're meant for both. And now in our current modern lifestyle where we're not using our muscles enough, we lose about 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade after the year of 30. So by the time we reach 65, 70, we're at a way higher risk for falls, for fractures, and many people, when they fall and break something, they never get up again, or they're at risk for death. So I want to warn you of that so that you avoid that. So start doing the resistance training plus cardiovascular now, every week. You don't have to do resistance training every day, 2 or 3 times a week. Cardio, hopefully every day, hopefully at least 5 days a week, all right? Because that's what we're meant for. We're not meant to be sedentary. Even the Bible says, with the sweat of thy brow, you will eat your bread. I think God meant exercise. That's my own interpretation. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's go to this last thing I want to show you. This is the last thing, okay? Bright light therapy for depression. Remember, sunlight is also one of the 8. Everything I have showed you so far is one of the 8 remedies, right? So nutrition, exercise, and now is sunlight, bright light therapy for depression. You might know already, but I don't know. But you might know that people that live in high latitudes, meaning closer to the poles, South Pole, North Pole, that they're at higher risk for depression and anxiety, but mostly depression, because the less sunlight you are exposed to is worse for your mental health. So people who live, for instance, in the Nordic countries, so like Norway and Finland and Sweden, places like that, they have very high rates of mental health problems and suicides, especially in the winter months. There's places where they only get just a few hours of sunlight in the winter. So they do have these lights, even in like bus stops. They have these special lights that people get exposed to. And in fact, I had one, but it's not here anymore. I wanted to show you, but I don't know what I did. We just got new floors, so everything got moved. I wanted to show you the light, but it looks like this. So people who have seasonal affective disorder, which is a type of depression that comes in the winter, because in the winter you have less sunlight. You can get these kinds of lights. You buy them on Amazon or online and stuff like that. These kinds of lights are especially designed so that you can get yourself exposed to more light in the winter. You don't put it right in front of your face. You put it kind of on the side, 15 minutes, 20 minutes while you're reading, studying, or whatever, even doing something in the computer. Just 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, and it will help reduce symptoms of depression. But ideally, of course, if we can get exposed to bright light from outside, is better. So what has been found is that the best times to do it is right in the morning, right after you wake up, as the sun is coming up. This is excellent time to go outside, expose yourself to the light from the outside, not the lamps inside the house. It's not bright enough. It has to be a special lamp like this. But if you can go outside, that's better. So go outside, expose your eyes to the light from outside for at least 5 to 10 minutes as early as possible in the morning. And if you can do it again in the afternoon, that's also very beneficial. Okay. And in the evening, as the sun comes down, try to turn off the lights, especially the ones from the ceiling. If you're going to have any lights on, they need to be at a low angle. Don't have the lights above on. Have low lamps and make sure they're not white. They need to be a yellow light without the white. It needs to be more yellow orangey, okay? Low lights. Forget the screens, you guys. They need to be on night shift. Remember, blue lights imitate the sky. So if you have blue lights from the screens coming into your eyes, you're telling your brain it's day. It's gonna mess up your circadian rhythm. Okay, that's a whole other thing, a whole other topic. I digress again. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the last slide, which is, I'm not sure if I used the same Bible verse last time. And if I did, well, I'm going to repeat it. Here it is. Philippians 2, 5 to 11 says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion of a man, humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross." So let this mind be in you, the mind of Jesus. He wants our minds to be renewed, to be filled with his likeness, to be filled with love and peace. And we can do that if we follow the plan that he gave us, if we follow his laws, his advice, his laws that he has left for us, because those are the best. He knows. He made us from here, top of our head to the bottom of our feet. He is the creator, and he is the engineer that made this wonderfully made machine, the most complex of the whole universe. So who would know better? Who would know better? exactly how to run it, right? So I'm going to give you once again, especially if this is your first time, you might not know that I have a website. So the website is healthfortoday.net. The reason why I'm giving you my website is because in my website, I have a 10-day plan. Just like in the Bible, in Daniel chapter 1, you might know that there's a story of young men who, for 10 days, they followed a diet that was plant-based. So let me show you what the website looks like. And right there where the arrow is, says 10-day challenge. So if you click there, again, the name of the website is right at the bottom, healthfortoday.net. And if you click on the 10-day challenge tab, it will take you to here. And you can download it for free. I don't ask you for even your email address or anything. Just download the PDF, and you can try a plant-based diet just like the young men from Daniel chapter 1 for 10 days. So that's why it's called also the Daniel challenge. And for 10 days, you can try it. And if you don't like it, you can stop it. But I guarantee you, because I have seen it with my own eyes at work, this is what I do for a living. I help people do a 10-day plant-based diet. And I can guarantee you, I've done it for almost 3 years, that their biometrics, for instance, their lipids, are the one thing that falls the quickest. So if you have high cholesterol, LDL, non-HDL, triglycerides, ApoB, any of these lipids, if they're high, if you have hyperlipidemia, hypercholesterolemia, hypertriglyceridemia, any of those hypers, it's going to come down. I've seen it. I can guarantee it. It's going to help you even if you have familial hypercholesterolemia, meaning it's genetic. Well, even if it's genetic, it'll help. I've seen it. Okay, so I do this for a living. Also, if you have problems with your glucose, whether it's diabetes, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, I see it all the time. It comes down. Well, unless you're not following, okay, because I see people who take it home and don't do it. Okay, well, I can't help you with that. If you have hypertension, meaning high blood pressure, I see it all the time. It helps. I see people who lose 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Well, it's not fat. I mean, you could lose 2 pounds of fat a week. So, but if you lose 8 to 10 pounds in 2 weeks, it's going to be a lot of fluid. People retain a lot of fluid because they eat too much salt. So if you start eating less salt, and if you start eating a plant-based diet, you're going to lose some adipose tissue, I'm sure, some fat, but also you're going to let go of so much water that you might lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I've seen it, okay? So there's that. Also, if you want to do intermittent fasting, I show you how to do it. So the menu for 10 days is 3 meals because I recognize most people can't just go to 2 meals immediately. So there's 3 meals. But if you want to do 2 meals, there's a way to do it too, if you want. Okay, if you want. So there's guidance for that if you'd like. Okay, so the reason why we do this is because that's God's diet. It's the Genesis 1:29 diet. All right. So thank you, everyone, for connecting today. Thank you for everyone who has been with us all along on True Health Tuesdays. As you know, for me, it's a great pleasure and an honor, a real honor. It's my little contribution. I wish I could participate with more things, for Living Manna, which I think is just a wonderful, wonderful community. I wish I could do really, more of the activities, but honestly, with, school right now, Loma Linda University is very, very difficult. Plus, the full-time job and all these other things. Plus, I ask you to pray for my husband because he's going through some health issues right now. So please, I ask for prayers. So it's been really very, very busy. But I figured this little one thing that I can do is the one thing that I know how to do, right? The one thing that I know I can contribute, to the church and to the YouTube channel, that I know this information can go above and beyond just the church, right? Because it can go to people who are in other countries, other continents, uh, everywhere. So I hope you can share this information with other people, because I know this can help other people. I know this can help people who are suffering, possibly, and in a small way. Maybe they need to know how to eat better if they have depression and anxiety and whatever other mental issues. I mean, obviously they're going to need more than just change of diet. They're going to need maybe therapy. They're going to need some professional help with a counselor and more things. Maybe they even need some medication for some time. But adding on the lifestyle components can help so much, and especially if they don't have access to medications, let's say. So these things can be vital, can help save someone's life even. So I would encourage you to share. And if you are someone who wants to start a ministry, remember, this is the right arm of the Three Angels message. So it's perfect. Okay. This is perfect. This is the time. This is right now, urgently needed. So many people are suffering, and many people might not even have access to medical care or medications, or who knows. So now it's more important than ever that we reach out to those who need this information. So I encourage you to share, use this information, give presentations, whatever you need to do. Feel free to use my slides or the video or whatever you want to do. So feel free to do it, okay? And if you have questions, make sure you put them in the chat. I'll be reading the comments. Reach me and my website as well. So whatever I can do to help, I'll try to help, okay? So let's finish with some prayer. And again, thank you for everyone who's connected. But let's finish up with some prayer. Okay. Dear Jesus, thank you so much again for this opportunity to do True Health Tuesdays. And thank you for this wonderful church, Living Manna Online, and for the community, for everyone who participates, everyone who is behind the technology as well, the production team, of course, Pastor Ivor Myers, Atante, and everyone, the whole leadership team as well. And we ask you to bless these presentations, all the programming that goes on throughout the week, and everyone who is connected tonight, everyone who will watch this presentation later, everyone who is in need, Lord, of this information, because they might be struggling, whether it is depression, anxiety, or some other mental health struggle. I ask you to bless them. I ask you to bless everyone who is around them, to be supportive as well, and to use this information in the best way possible. And please bless all our members and everyone who is connected with our members, so that we may reach them and we may spread the word and the good news of your love to as many people as possible. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So thank you again. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. I don't have the name of the presentation yet, but I will let you know as soon as possible. So I will announce that as soon as possible. But I will see you in 2 weeks. I'll give you the date immediately. It will be October 28th. And it will be pre-recorded, but I will announce the topic as soon as possible. Don't forget, it's in October 28th. Thank you so much, and goodbye, everyone, and God bless you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.